Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Tucker Carlson appeared on the roadshow of Megyn Kelly and had some very powerful comments that are going viral.
And that you can be saved by Jesus. That is Christianity in 3 sentences.
I want to show those comments, but I think we need Bishop Barron to set the stage for why what Carlson had to say was so powerful. Tucker Carlson literally gets booed for these comments.
Yeah, well, I'm not for that. Sorry.
And what I think this shows is it's just another testament to the reality that whether you are encircled by the left or the right, if you bring up true Christianity, if you bring up Jesus, the truth of salvation, it can trouble many. All right, let's start with Barron to make sense of these comments, and then after we will look at what Tucker Carlson had to say.
The trouble is we Christians have come hat in hand to the secular culture, hoping to find their approval. That's getting it completely backwards. That's the integrated Orthodox view coming to a heretical position and saying, can you please take us seriously? And we stopped taking ourselves seriously. And then we did what Kant and company recommended, just turned Christianity into kind of a vague ethical system. But it's the very weirdness and distinctiveness and dense texture of Christianity that should be in the driver's seat culturally, it seems to me. My example of the principle that Tom was articulating, if I can I make reference to an American revolutionary? So when Jefferson blithely says in the Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Well, I mean, in the classical world, Plato, Aristotle, Cicero, if you said, it's self-evident that all people are equal, what? I mean, it was the opposite of self-evident to them. Plato's whole political philosophy is predicated upon the assumption that we're not equal, and that the more we recognize that, the more just a society we have. Aristotle thought that only a handful of people should get involved in politics. Most are incapable of it. The equality. So what happened? That's the interesting question. What happened to go from that to Jefferson, late 18th century, saying it's self-evident? Well, of course, the giveaway is that little word that all men are created equal. What intervened was the Christian sense of creation. And then, furthermore, from Jefferson, they're endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. Well, nobody in the ancient world believed in inalienable rights for everybody. A handful of privileged people, or they were the gift of the state or something. But that everybody's got inalienable rights. Well, again, the giveaway, they're endowed by their creator with these. I mean, so there's the intervention of Christianity into the conversation. So things become self-evident to us because they've been hardwired through the Christian influence. We should claim that. And that's why I very much admire Tom Holland's work, because we should claim that as Christians confidently and boldly and stop coming hat in hand to the culture, begging to be taken seriously.
Bishop Barron is teaching that Christian doctrine, especially its understanding of God and what it means to be human, has deeply shaped American society. Central to this is the truth that every person is created in the imago Dei, in the image and likeness of God. This Christian vision, in contrast to atheistic or even other religious views of humanity, became dominant in the West. From it came the conviction that human beings are not accidental or expendable, but made by God, and thus each individual carries dignity, rights, and value because of that divine image. So this teaching is needed to understand the recent comments of Tucker Carlson, the comments he made while he appeared on Megyn Kelly's roadshow. So he's responding to his critics on why he would platform the far-right commentator Nick Fuentes. So Nick is often criticized for being a white Christian nationalist, and he has anti-Semitic overtones. And this is a really big issue right now in light of Charlie Kirk and some of the conspiracies of Candace Owens. And if you don't know about that, go check that out. So Carlson is basically being accused of being a Nazi, right? Because he is platforming an anti-Semitic voice like Nick Fuentes. This is what he had to say.
It is totally illegitimate and very specifically unchristian to attack people for their DNA. Like, I hate this group.
You wanted him to hear that.
We all have to hear that. And because that is the basis of Western civilization. Western civilization is derived from the New Testament. It is based on Christian ethics. And the core difference between the West and the rest of the world, not just Israel, but every other country, is that we don't believe in collective punishment because we don't believe in blood guilt. We don't believe that you are born guilty, and we also don't believe that you're born virtuous. We believe that God created every person as an individual. God did not create communities. Every woman gives birth to a human being, and every person has the spark of God inside him.
So, this idea of spark of the divine actually stems from the Gnostic heresy. So, we as Christians don't actually believe that. He's probably getting this not from his historical Protestant, Orthodox, or Catholic theological viewpoints that he might have. He's really getting this from a weird evangelical view, but we'll let it slide this time.
I mean, that's what we believe as Christians. And every person has the possibility of redemption. And in my religion, the great human hero, in Christianity, Jesus is God in human form. But the great human hero in the New Testament is its primary author, Paul, who was Saul of Tarsus, who was the primary persecutor as a Pharisee of Christians. He was murdering Christians. He was Jewish, by the way, so like everyone in the New Testament, but he was on the way to go murder more Christians. That he met Jesus, and then he became the great evangelist of our faith and wrote the majority of the New Testament. So like he's my personal hero, but he's also living testament to the truth about people, which is each one of us was born as an individual, and we will face God alone at the end to account for our lives. And along the way, there is always the possibility that no matter what your genes are, what you look like, or what your religion is, that you can change and that you can be saved by Jesus. That is Christianity in 3 sentences. And so that is reflected, even for people who aren't Christians, that is reflected in an ethical framework and a legal code that is the only truly unusual and great thing about the West, which is we do not punish the innocent. We only punish the guilty. We do not, you commit a crime, we don't throw your kids in jail. We don't execute your cousins. We don't commit genocide against your whole tribe. We punish you because you did it. We treat each person as an individual. That is Western civilization. That's a Christian understanding. It does not derive from any other religion. Christianity alone, unique, makes that claim. And that's the basis of our justice system, which, again, even non-Christians appreciate. That's why they move here, because it's self-evidently more humane. That's where the idea of human rights come from. They're not collective rights. It's not that your tribe has rights and his tribe doesn't. It's you as an individual have rights. And that idea is not only being challenged in our country, it's being disregarded. It's disregarded in DEI, it's disregarded in affirmative action. Identity politics is a refutation of that idea. We are awarding some people something because of how they were born and hurting others for the same reason. That is anti-Western, it's evil, and it leads, in the end, inexorably to genocide. That is the root idea behind what happened in Europe in the 40s under the Nazis. It's the root idea behind what happened in Rwanda in 1994. It's the root idea, just saying, behind what's happening in Gaza right now, where it's like, we're going to kill the kids too, we don't care, and we're going to, by the way, move everyone out because they're a people that is fundamentally opposed to us. Yeah, well, I'm not for that. Sorry, because that's not the Western understanding of justice. We punish the guilty alone. We do not punish the innocent. Period. And that's not racism, and in fact, it's the answer to racism. It's the answer to anti-Semitism. It's why anti-Semitism is wrong. It's why racism is wrong. No, you're not better than me. No, you're not worse than me because of how you were born. You're the same as me because we were both created by God. Period. So the whole idea of thinking of people as members of tribes, any tribe, including my tribe, is prima facie immoral. And yet, it is the operating idea behind so much of our politics. And I reject it. I reject it when it manifests as anti-Semitism. I reject it when it manifests as anti-white racism, which has, been pretty common. I know we're not supposed to say it, but it's real. But I'm not mad about that just because my kids are white, which they are. I'm mad about that because the idea is immoral, it's anti-Christian, and that is the destruction of the West. And so when I see these people like, we're defending Western, when Mark Levin's like, we're defending Western civilization, or Randy Fine, who's like, yeah, we just have to kill every Palestinian because they're Palestinian so we can defend Western civilization. I'm like, no. You're the enemy of Western civilization because collective punishment is the enemy of Western civilization. Period.
Wow.
That's what I wanted to say, and I said it, and they called me a Nazi, and I'm like, actually, I hate the Nazis for that specific reason.
Okay, so wow, there's a lot here, and I'm not sure exactly where we should go with this. I think the main thing that interests me so much about this is the fact that Tucker Carlson appeals to his Christian heritage, to Christian theology and ethics to make a powerful point, in conjunction with kind of this controversy that's brewing around him platforming Nick Fuentes. I think what I want us to see, at least I'm seeing from this, is just how important it is to have this view of the Imago Dei. And what Carlson is saying in his comments, it basically the application would be something like we shouldn't assassinate people, whether, like Charlie Kirk, literally assassinate people, but also like the persona of individuals, predicated upon impressions or group affiliations, right? People have rights and they're individuals, and they shouldn't be depleted from those rights, they shouldn't be depleted from those rights just because of something that isn't necessarily inherent to them. So, for example, a black person should not be treated differently than a white person. And the reason that is the case is because a black person doesn't choose to be black. A white person doesn't choose to be white. And therefore, we shouldn't treat them differently or assassinate them because of that, if that makes sense. But as Martin Luther King explained to us, while our color, the color of our skin is inherent to us, and we don't choose that, we do choose the content of our character. So we should be judged predicated upon the actions and the choices that we make, right? And I think that this is the Christian ideal that Tucker Carlson is trying to bring out that has won out in the West. Now, it's interesting too because I think there are many people that hear that and they'll think, well, Christianity always hasn't lived into that ideal. Obviously, lots of the slave owners were nominally Christian, but that leads to an even more profound point that we need to understand. The sacred scriptures, the Christian teaching, the sacred scriptures that reveal the Imago Dei are more important than are more important than people claiming to be Christian, right? And that gets to an even more profound point that how you live actually reveals what you believe. You can't just call yourself a Christian. Christians are those that actually embody the scriptures. They obey God, they produce fruit. That means you must give people this freedom. You must treat others this way. Why? Because that's the way that you would want to be treated. And of course, we don't do this perfectly. And so we need grace, and God extends that grace to us. But we should never use grace as a license to keep sinning. We should never use grace as a cop out to do what is right. It really is a sin not to treat people justly, fairly, and lovingly. It's not biblical or Christian to condemn people for things that they have not done. We should never assassinate predicated upon impressions or conspiracies. So, how are we to judge? We need to judge rightly. Obviously, God judges and he always does it rightly. And human beings, we don't do it rightly. So, we probably shouldn't judge much. We should judge ourselves, right? Do we live into this ideal, right? But we should also be looking to the content of character and actions of people. Did Tucker Carlson do anything wrong? No, he didn't do anything wrong. The only way you could find him doing something wrong is through an impression, right? I think it's really important to remember too, and I know my thoughts are kind of scattered here and they're not fully coherent and connected, but we need to remember that Jesus was condemned for our sins. He took our sin and our shame. One thing I disagree with Tucker here is that he says that we're kind of innocent. We're not innocent. We're born with original sin. And we need God to do things for us. We need God to save us in a way that we could never save ourselves. And I actually think that this is what inspires the type of grace, it inspires the type of love that this world so desperately needs. Finding it in Christ and realizing what he did for you and ultimately what he did for the world. That's what will ultimately change us. That's what will ultimately make the difference, and where this Christian ideal will not just be something that people like or they want and inspired to, but it'll actually be a reality in their lives. All right, be thinking about that today. God bless and peace.